Hey everybody, it's Ron at Becoming Enlightened Together. So we're doing a Monday read, okay? This one happens to be a karmic read. And I say that because it becomes very specific. As we go through this reading, we go through all 6 rooms. The overall energy, of course, for the week is very positive. It's Othala in the upright. It's this one right here. Okay, and this talks about ancestry, heritage. It talks about home, house, dwelling, ancestral property, abundance, inheritances. It talks about that which is important to a person or a group order. It talks about aid in both physical and spiritual journeys. It talks about one's values, basically the source of safety, and increase in abundance. So it's basically about the family, both past and present, and how that in itself is a source of, well, abundance, protection, and things of that nature. But it goes beyond that. It goes into your spiritual family, okay? Your ancestors and so on, who are there to aid, to help if you ask. And you have to ask, or they're not allowed to intervene. It's like the prime directive in any one of these sci-fi movies or whatever. They're not allowed to interfere unless you ask for their help. It's just like in Christianity, we ask for, protection or guidance or whatever the case may be, or any other faith, religion for that matter. It's the same way. So you ask or call upon, who it is that you believe in, pray in, and so on. This is specific to your ancestors, however, and you are the sum of your ancestors. Every previous generation of your bloodline made it possible for you to be here today. So yes, it's only right to give, respect to that. They had to go through an awful lot, in their world in order to survive, and then eventually produce you. So they couldn't just walk down to a supermarket and get, whatever, or fast food joint and order whatever. Everything, they were very close to the earth. It didn't matter whether you were a more advanced civilization or, what we would call more primitive ones. Those who were more, the indigenous variety who, again, were very close to the earth. That doesn't say that they're, primitive in that respect. But, Western way of thinking is, well, it's been tainted in many ways, and Hollywood promotes it as well. And, of course, with the racism, prejudice, and everything else that exists in every culture, not just, Anglo-Saxon, not by any stretch of the imagination. I've been all over the world, so, I've seen it. I've seen it pretty much everywhere. I mean, they still take slaves in places like Africa, for example. One tribe versus another tribe kind of a thing. And they still do it in other, places in this world as well. Middle East, you name it. So it's just something that humans have, for whatever reasons, always done, especially in a war type of environment. So until, we grow up as a species, it's always going to exist to some degree or another. But I'm not here to, chastise, point fingers, or, any of that kind of stuff. It is what it is. So, alright, now the past energy, or that which we pulled yesterday for today, Monday, is Manas, and Manas is in the reverse. Okay. Now, Manas basically talks about selfishness, somebody who's uninvolved with others, really victim, egoism, somebody who's lonely and depressed, probably in hermit mode, somebody who's having a real really focused on their mortality at this point. Somebody who's blind, delusional, somebody who's cunning, sly, manipulative, crafty, calculated, um, somebody who can expect no help at this time. Okay? Now we're going to see how this is a karmic, for the karmic reading. This is basically just, since we've been focusing on the last 3 weeks at least, almost primarily on the collective and the, abundance and all the positive things that are happening because of their good karma that's coming. And we're also starting to see some of the bad things that are going to happen or befall to those who have chosen, the dark side, so to speak. Okay. Now the present energy is also positive. It's Yera. Yera's in the upright. This talks about harvests and seasons. Talks about reaping what you've sown. Your karma, good or bad. Specifically in the upright, though, it does talk about the fruits of your earlier efforts being realized. Okay. It talks about breakthroughs in stagnation, peace. Talks about rewards. Breakthroughs in stagnation, hope and expectations, prosperity and success. We see certain positive aspects for the collective that are echoed again and again and again, and then we start to see more and more of what is going to be befall those who we would classify as karmic. You wanted to put a title on it, the non-collective. Okay, those who have chosen their path. And by their actions and continued actions, now they're going to be rewarded as such. Okay. Within the present energy of Yera, we also talk about how everything changes in its own time. Exactly. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this 10+ year cycle to finally end. And it is coming to a close for a great many of us. But it's also coming to a close for those who may not even be aware of, these types of things, occurring in our reality in terms of cycles, lessons to be learned. Some people are there for our edification, those who we call karmic. Sometimes even relationships can be karmic, again, to teach us certain lessons to help us to become stronger and wiser. In many ways. The other people who may not have any conscious awareness of it, who are participating in the negative aspect of it, well, they get rewarded for their actions as well. Okay? So, next what we have in the obstacles and challenges is Sowelo. Now, Sowelo is a very positive rune in the upright, and that's what it is. It looks like the thunderbolt, or lightning bolt, I should say. Thunder is not the lightning, it's the noise that it makes after it cracks the sound barrier. And it basically talks about the sun, victory, clarity, clear vision, honor, achievement. It talks about rest, your goals being achieved, your life force. Again, we're talking about the collective here. It talks about your health, power being available to you for positive changes in your life. Now, you have to take the initiative. You have to make efforts in that regard, and the universe will, of course, catch you. It'll meet you halfway, so to speak. It also talks about contacts with the higher forces, the spiritual realm. It talks about a sense of wholeness and power, and again, being in contact or influenced in one way or another by the elemental forces. Now, many cultures have their take on what those represent, whether they're talking about the Fae or the Green Man or, all these other, type of connections with nature, spirits of some type, elementals. Okay. Now, as far as our help and advice, it talks again about what we can expect in terms of the karmic world. And it talks about what the karmics themselves should be preparing for, especially if they're still in doubt about this. Now we have Wunyo in the reverse. Looks like a P typically in the upright, but it isn't. It's reversed. Now, ordinarily it would be a good rune, but in the reverse it talks again about misery, fear, dissatisfaction. It talks about somebody who's headstrong, impatient. Talks about strife and alienation, delirium, intoxication. It talks about somebody even potentially being possessed by higher spirits. It talks about somebody who's impractical, somebody who's in a raging frenzy, somebody who's literally gone berserk. Okay, and that word comes from the Norse, by the way. They used to have a special forces group that were known as the berserkers, so to speak. Okay, and they just worked them up into a frenzy where, I mean, they felt no pain or anything like that. They didn't get tired and all that. They'd wreak, havoc and so on, and maybe they'd come down after that, But that's kind of where the term came from. Now, as far as the future outcome is concerned, again, this is pretty bleak, and this talks to the Karmics in particular. This is Thurisaz, but it's in the reverse. Now, this is the god Thor's mighty rune, and in reverse, it shares the opposite of his normal attributes. So somebody who's extremely stubborn, somebody is foolhardy, someone who simply does not heed any advice from anybody, somebody in folly, somebody endangers himself and others, somebody who is basically defenseless at this point, compulsive, somebody who will betray you in a heartbeat, somebody who's being betrayed, somebody who's dull, evil, malicious, somebody who's filled with hatred and malice, somebody who's tormented, again, by the spirit, somebody who's spiteful, somebody who's a liar, somebody who is a rapist. Yes, that's one of the words that describe this energy in the reverse. And somebody who's generally seen as a bad person. Now, it's not for us to judge. We only judge actions, right? We can look at an action and say that is not in the best interest of yourself or anybody else, and then we would classify that ordinarily as being something bad, especially depending on the level of, effect it may have on somebody or some bodies. So some things can be extremely heinous, and, of course, we would classify it as being evil. Other things, not so much, a white lie, so to speak, or whatever the case may be. Not that lying is ever right, but sometimes, there are actual examples of, holding off perhaps certain truths so as genuinely not trying to harm somebody. Certain things could actually cause more harm than good, okay? So, but for the most part, and I would say 98 to 99% of the time, you should always be completely honest, always truthful. Once you lose the label of being an honest person or somebody who walks in integrity, it's extremely difficult to get that title back. So I would say always be honest, always, unless you come across that 1% situation where it would do a greater harm than good for somebody. And sometimes just not giving, certain facts could fall into that category, okay? Even if you knew something, but you abstain in sharing that something to somebody that could cause them a great deal of harm. And I'm not talking about you've done something malicious to somebody and you don't want to admit to it. That's not what I'm talking about. So I want to make that point clear. Always accept responsibility for your actions. If you've done something to harm somebody, make it right. However that may be. One of the things that we're seeing more and more in this world is that people just don't have a sense of duty or honor or anything like that anymore. No integrity. They say all heroes are, don't exist anymore and things of that nature, but I disagree. I strongly disagree. And you can be a hero in your own world, in your own life, simply by not giving in, simply by doing the right thing no matter what. Okay? It's easier said than done, and that's what makes something admirable. Okay? If it was easy, anybody would do it, could do it. And most people choose not to, so don't be those people. We've got enough of those in this world. So, anyway, I wish it was a better read, but, the Karmics have to have their say-so too. So, that's what we're seeing today. We're seeing that somebody who's basically our bodies within our sphere of energetic influence basically have earned the wrath of the spiritual realm, and they're about ready to get their little spiritual behind spanked, so to speak. Whereas, again, and you can't take everybody with you on this journey. Once we move forward and everything else, I mean, certain people we're going to have to leave behind, and you have to be willing to accept that. Okay? Not everybody has done the work. Not everybody can go forward. And that's not for you or I to say, of course, but you have your own life, and sometimes people earn their way out of your life by their actions. Lesser to their words. It's their actions that we look at, or inactions, depending. Anyway, I feel I'm getting a little bit too on the preachy side right now, and I don't want to do that, so I'm going to leave you with this. I hope it helps somebody out there, to see what's going on, perhaps with some people that they're going to observe going through it. I'm not saying everybody that's having a hard time is, deserving of, if you will, whatever it is that they're going through. You would know, okay? Sometimes we go through these things because it's a way of teaching us a valuable lesson, or to make us stronger, perhaps. But there are those, and this is the whole reason why prisons exist in the first place, who just refuse to do that which is socially, accepted in terms of the majority believing this is the right course of action and that's the wrong course of action. I don't want to get into the political side of all that, because we know that the prison system, like politics and everything else, is no longer what it purported to be, and it's being influenced and utilized for many wrong reasons. And they're locking people up who, in many ways, are far less criminal than the ones who are making the rules in the first place, those who are ruling. Many of those people have done some very, very evil things. So, as far as justice goes, that's the universe's job to dictate. We can just do our part by not being those people, one, to resist those kinds of people, and wherever possible to change, those things that they have set in place that are wrong. Okay? And again, I'm getting to the preachy side. I'm sorry. It must be the uniform or whatever. It's the only thing I had that was, not in the dryer right now, so I just put it on to stay warm. It's a little chilly out there right now. So, that's pretty much it, you guys. So, as always, to my collective, stay victorious. To the Karmics out there who may have actually tuned in and everything else, if you're going through it, again, it may be too late to change what it was that you've already done, but you can start making things right by accepting your responsibility, taking your comeuppance, your ass whooping and everything else, and hopefully become a better person as a result of it, so it doesn't get worse for you. Some will do that, some will not. And that's what this reading is about. It's letting you know what's coming. And it's letting you know that you have, not just through me, but many, many different ways, you have been told, warned. You have, through dreams, through songs. Your ancestors have all tried, and that's what they do. And if you continue to refuse to listen, then everything that happens, you have nobody to blame but yourself. So, again, with that being said, I will see you all again tomorrow. Until then, I wish my collective the utmost victory. So, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye.